I just wanted to start out by sharing with you what last week's channel, like if there was one thing that I came away from it with, it was all, remember, miracles and membrane and mystery, and was disarmament. Two things: the disarmament part, disarm yourself. And then what the Debbie and I, we were talking about believing, but also before that, stating intention. And so that I did that on my drive up north. I packed up the car for 3 months of being gone. And on 4 hours of driving, I made the commitment. I spoke that intention. I said, I'm going to pay so much attention to what is going on in my need to disarm, because I know I have it just like everybody else. And the takeaway was, it was every freaking 5 minutes. As I paid attention to my thoughts and how many times my thoughts would wander into something I'm engaged with somebody in real life, and how many times I postured us versus them. This process of paying attention, seeing where our judgmental thoughts are, turning them around to consider, what did it mean in the revolution to me? So I did that, and I have to say, it felt like a great workout of that muscle.
Can I ask about the disarmament? I'm not being clear on that term. Like when I think of disarming myself, it's like, well, you mean, like my defenses, is that what we're doing? Is we're going in and we're seeing can you give me an example? Like, are you going in to see when you were defensive, or when you were, I don't know what?
Within those thought process situations, whatever I'm thinking about, anytime that I make somebody my adversary, or somebody responsible for me, or somebody that like Lynda, you sometimes say, in the old world, we used to blame them. It's like those thought processes still go on in my head. I have conflicts like everybody else, and I get riled up about things, and then I don't know what to do, and I'm la 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 la. So to pay attention inside that world of disarming those structures of whatever, I don't know, I'm learning, whatever it is that drives me to want to continue on with this, because God knows I know I don't want to. I don't want to keep blaming somebody, or I don't want to keep having resentment towards someone, but there are processes where I do. And within those microscopic moments of somehow making a different decision than to be that victim in that moment while you're having it. Because isn't that what disarming ourselves of hurting ourselves? Like, it's like, I think of it like more like, not like nuclear, but like a knife at your throat. Somebody's got a knife at your throat. So you're disarming yourself. I wasn't somebody who didn't want to be involved in conflict. I was somebody who was always starting conflict, like purposefully, because I was acting out and projecting and all of that. So that
helps very much.
Yeah. And like I said, I think it's just a new way to say an old thing that we've been doing.
There you go. And that's what I love about Einstein. This is always good, but I wanted to just get it right, in my head.
No, yeah.
I personally was having just this morning a conflict, and it was somebody that I thought, I can't be triggered by them anymore. But it was so bad, and I was shaking. I was so bad. I was like, what? And then so what? I have to revolve this again, and what? I'm not doing that. I'm not doing no. And it's just, and I don't know what. I don't even know what to do. So when I get to that point, but the disarming is somewhere in there. I guess I have to get through that, the angst, I guess, and then calm down more, and then Okay, well, where am I still torturing myself? Where's the knife? Where's that knife? I gotta get rid of that next to my throat because it just doesn't feel good. Sorry.
Well, in those moments, I take heart from Jim Morrison's words. You know, all you have to do is be yourself and trust that intention that you have to work for the greatest good.
Yeah.
But boy, it's hard to be yourself. I'm sorry.
I found, but for me, this week has just been a real big week of revelation of how often these thoughts, everything is bombarding me. And then to get myself in a space to say, okay, I can just, in essence, stand behind the short wall. I use this short wall analogy. And so like stand behind the short wall. So I'm not putting up a whole wall around me. I'm just putting up a partial place where I can observe. I suppose if I needed to, I could duck down behind that short wall, but it's more about me trying to get in that space of just observing it and letting it work out. And I know that that doesn't quite go into conflict.
No, but it's adaptation. I mean, if you think about how you've adapted your life over 40, 50, 60 years, right? You've been adapting, consciously pushing for change in your life, and you adapt. You get the short wall. Great. You know, pretty soon, someday we'll all be one. But right now, I need that short wall sometimes too, you know?
But it's not like putting up a whole barrier to protect myself anymore. It's more like, okay, I'm letting a lot of it, it still can come back to me that way. I'm not shutting it off completely. What I found I needed to do this week was I got really, really tired and worn out. And it was like, okay, I think I just need to stop and just be. Just be. And whenever a thought came into me that I really wasn't one of compassion for somebody else, I was really working hard at just trying to get into that space of love and compassion and just stay there. This has been a really tough week.
But you look
But
great.
I'm making progress.
You are.
You can see it.
Absolutely can see it.
Yeah.
And your voice is stronger.
Yeah.
And you've just summed up, yes, exactly what I've experienced too.
We're all experiencing a lot of things. It's our own, each individual's situations might be a little bit different, but I think in a way they're very similar.
And what I got from what you said is, how I just want to pop into my head so much to rationalize and when I am in that angst and shaking and I just have to know, I'm okay. I just have to feel this. It's okay to feel. I'm not going to blow up, but I'll just, keep feeling this without my head in there, just to be, like you said, and then just to be in the compassion. If I could just get to that space, like you got to, that I think is the most valuable, out of our heads and just into this compassionate feeling in our hearts and just feeling it all with compassion for ourselves. That's big.
As often as these things are bombarding all of us right now, I think for me, this is for me, but every time one of these things happens and I realize that, and I think back to other situations with the same person or the same whatever, it's like, okay, if I could just not be there and just be in here.
That's right.
And just let it be each time, in a way that's kind of working the conflict,
Absolutely.
It's just that I'm doing it
Totally.
probably a little bit different, but
Yeah.
I'm doing it in a way that seems to be working for me.
Totally, yes. Thank you for sharing. That was very valuable for me.
That was really the design of conflict resolution. While there's a system that's documented about how you do it, after that, it's meant to be customized for each individual's life and needs. It's not okay, you do this and this and this, or you have to do it the way that I do it, or any of it. And that's something I think we've learned in this group through the months. Even more so is that it doesn't look one way, even though there's a curriculum that can teach you everything about it. Then you take it and make it your own.
One of the things I've been saying to myself a lot this week is, I am that I am, and I am Lynda of sovereign domain. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to get back to loving myself, because I don't think I ever loved myself in my lifetime, in this particular life. Not truly. I have a picture of me when I was younger, and I look at this picture and I call it the sad Lynda. And it sits on my nightstand, and I look at it first thing in the morning and the last thing at night. And it's, now I can look at this picture and I don't see quite so much sadness coming out of the eyes of that picture at me. So I think that's progress.
Absolutely. And adaptation. Sorry, Jojo.
Do you have a picture of yourself smiling, laughing out loud, something joyous that you can look at or put
Yeah.
beside?
Not too many. I never smiled as a
Fine.
child.
Well, take a selfie and get it developed, or whatever you have to do, because you have a beautiful smile, a radiant smile, and that's what you want to energize. Say
Yeah.
thank you to the sad Lynda for enduring. But I think what you're saying, and what I've been, working with as well, is not just being who you are, but really honoring that, really understanding how to honor and articulate, which, it's taken me a long time to figure out what exactly that means, even though that's my forte apparently, to discern what's good for you and what's not good for you. And of course, you're always going to feel that. So if running into the same people that trigger you, you can opt not to do that. I have an ongoing on again, off again relationship with someone, and she lives across the road from me. And it's a relationship that that for me can be exhilarating, but can be such a drain as well. And she blew up at me a while ago, and I took about 24 hours to decide how I was going to deal with that. It was, I knew why, I knew it was her stuff, and yet I wasn't saying anything that wasn't true. And so I decided to just write to her, email her, thank her, apologize for upsetting her, even though that's her domain, but apologize for adding any stress to her life, or whatever, however I said it, so that I felt I was honoring my own well-being, but also hers. And I've just decided not to engage with her right now. In a kind way. She reached out again yesterday, and I said, I'm just enjoying my solitary walks. They're more rejuvenating for me right now, instead of listening to her defensiveness and then look at my own defensiveness and so on. So I think I agree with what you're saying entirely, in terms of what works for you in a way that honors you, but not that you have to be doing for everyone else or accommodating their needs. It's not, if it's not honoring ourselves, if it's not being compassionate for ourselves. Big lesson for me this time.
Well, and both of you bring home the point of that I'm working on, is at what moment do we decide to either, Debbie, change what's going, surrender to the whatever, or you and me, Joanne, saying, no, thank you, I can't. If you're not going to go into some big story about, well, you said this and I said that, and I need my blah, blah, blah. No, I just know my intuition is saying, don't engage.
And you wish them well, which,
Yes,
you know, of course, you know,
absolutely.
take good care of yourself, you know, enjoy life. And she wrote, life is fragile. I said, agreed, fragile and precious and, you know, important to take care of for yourself. But those voices of culture, they've just been so much. Every time I read an obituary that says she put everyone else before herself, and then I add, and now she's dead. And, you know,
Yeah.
like there's a direct line in a way. Like sometimes that's a way to get out of that, but we don't have to die to get out of that. Those relationships that, you know, drain us or drive us crazy or whatever you want to say. We can
You
be
know,
compassionate for all.
and last week we touched upon this concept about carrying on the evolution of a relationship after that person might have passed away.
Yes.
And I was thinking again after our conversation about that, about how I had successfully handled being able to say no to my father without letting him back into my life, without having any attachment to him. But then I also didn't share that after he passed, an entirely new relationship has grown from that in whatever way it is, you know, with people in afterlife. But I have had conversations, you know, and his first reaction was, oh, I get what you're saying. I get what you were saying to me. And being able to work on things on this much higher level. It made,
Good tangent. I was there this week too, and I've done a lot of thanking of people that I was very close with. I interacted with related to whatever, parents, husband, all these people that are on the other side, and thanking them for everything, because I know that there were times when I didn't feel very charitable toward them. You know, when we didn't agree about things. And this is another biggie that's been coming up for me too. So right now, it's just more about trying to be thankful it's hard to be thankful when we don't think things are working for us or we're in pain or whatever that is. That's hard to be in that space of being thankful. But for me, it's something I'm really working on, is to be very thankful for and be in that space of gratitude as well, because obviously I chose this lifetime and I chose to interact.
Yep, we agreed to the human intention. We
Oh,
agreed to create these bodies. And as importantly, I think, is that from what you're saying about having these conversations with people who have passed on and learning from them still, you know, is making these different decisions for ourselves, where we're going to say no to the armament. We're going to say no to all of those voices that are saying, how come you're not more normal? Come on, what's wrong with you? Get it together. You're supposed to be getting together. How can you possibly blah, 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 blah. Making those decisions about how to do that, I think.
You should look up that word, normal.
Yeah, oh, good. I'll do that. I wanted to look up also, adaptation, because, and this is what's interesting. It says adapt, to adjust to a specified use or situation, to adjust, to change so as to match or fit, make correspond, to bring into proper relationship, to harmonize, to settle, to conform to new conditions.
New conditions. Now, there is a very good definition. To conform to new conditions versus trying to always make peace or make things work for everybody else. But I think that's a excellent part of the definitions.
I believe so as well, is that, and it kind of is, to me, it's like conform to new conditions, that we've worked so hard for so long that we're conforming to these new people that we've become. Like we have to get to know who these new, we're adapting to
Yes.
ourselves.
I totally feel that now. I even woke up this morning and I went from a dream state a couple of times. And I think in my dreams, I'm even becoming a new body. I think in my sleep, it's work. And on whether it's energies coming in, I want to ask Einstein if we have a channeling about this, you know, is it true that we are becoming new? I know that we're all working on it, you know, doing this work and whatnot, of getting through our limitations, our beliefs and blah, blah, blah. But are we also having to adapt to really, really new bodies? Are we really doing this ascension thing or becoming light bodies in this physical form? You guys have heard that, right? That's what we're doing here. And I feel like that's really happening. And I have to, and that was one of my revs, was to go, oh, I have to really accept my new self that I'm becoming, that I am actually more powerful. I don't have to depend on anybody else anywhere. And it's all up to me as a, like you said, Lynda, as a sovereign being. That's a totally different person than I was. Miss Victor, Miss Please Everybody.
Yep.
It's so different. I'm adapting.
It's the willingness to be free, like the quote from last week.
I like that.
I think sometimes we're afraid to be free.
Well, most people are, and we all have been there, depending on the circumstance. But an affirmation I came across this week in one of my latest things is I am free. Just keep saying that to change the neural network, the pathways, so that you actually.
Okay, so normal.
Yes, please.
But this, conforming, adhering to, or constituting a usual or typical pattern, level, or type. Usual, typical, not affected, immunized, or changed by experimentation.
Well, really just the opposite of adaptation.
Not affected, immune, or changed by experimentation, just the opposite of adaptation.
Because adaptation, you're you know, conforming to the new condition. The other one, you're
Conforming to the old condition.
Yeah, the old one.
You're
Yes.
staying in the caterpillar. You're staying in the caterpillar.
Exactly.
Yep. Yeah.
Wow. Yes, I think that is it. We're all in the process of adaptation, but let's do Ask Einstein.
So we want to be abnormal, in other words, right? Honor our abnormalities.
Yes. So I want to just put out a goodly amount of energy for anybody who listens afterwards. Let's take some deep breaths together. And as we breathe in, breathe deep into your heart. And when you exhale any of the cloudy masses, cluttered spaces, let it all drain out and make yourself into an empty rice bowl to receive this information. We're so honored to be able to have these spaces together in this consciousness, listening to this song like a hymn or a psalm, bringing the good news. So first we'll command that only the most divine light shine down upon us at this time, and that the greatest good be present here. welcome to the party. And it is a party indeed, for so many reasons. But here on April 30th, 2022, we have the eclipse taking place and this shift into establishing your new adaptation for these next 6 months ahead. In the shadow of this energy of this eclipse, you'll be finding new homes within yourself. You'll be establishing new structures that are meant to keep you in the process of adapting. Adaptation isn't something that just happens. It's a part of the continual process. Constantly adapting to the new you. This is a journey of lifetimes. This is an evolution of lifetimes. And as we've said before, because you have the ability to have a human life and you're connected to the source and of the oneness, you have the capacity to live any life. This process of adaptation that you're experiencing on April 30th, 2022, is the product of a much longer normal than you can consciously perceive. Now that we've told you it's that much bigger, you might have a chance, but this pattern has been imprinted on billions of lives, the old normal, within you too. So to break free of it and adapt means building a system that builds adaptation into the system. This particular time of human adaptation is the result of all that's come before, but it's the new configuration of humanity coming together like has never been on the planet before. There's never been this many humans on the planet, and there's never been this many humans who are consciously working together towards the adaptation of the entire human species. How is the species going to adapt to these particular challenges in order to survive? This push is what all of you are all about. You might think it's just something that you do in your head at the kitchen table and it's not important. But it is. And it's just as important as whatever goes on in that chrysalis between the stage of caterpillar and butterfly. It's also as important as what goes on within your energy, your body, as you make these different choices. We've always been all about being as cognitive as you can about the microscopic choices that you make in a day. Now, remember, free will exists in the intellect, and free will gives you the power to say no to intuition. As you're adapting, it's our hope that by cultivating that witness who's able to witness exactly what intuition said and then witness exactly what intellect thinks and does, chooses to do. By cultivating that witness to the third, to be that third power, now you have given yourself the ability to adapt in an evolutionary step. And that's how microscopic those decisions are. So as you've talked about before we came to speak, you were reviewing, each and every one of you are reviewing your own personal, intricate, intimate decisions that you're making. When you, for example, Debbie, are able to review with that structure of witness, intuition, and intellect, emotions flowing, it's just part of the creation process. But when you're able to read a situation while you're in it, and then choose to make that different decision, where before, in the old configuration of codependency, you would have allowed yourself to be victimized by it. Making that different decision, this is exactly what we're talking about when we say disarmament. When humans reprogram themselves on this level, you're naturally going to manifest different outcomes in ways that don't even bother to try to connect the dots. There's such unexpected manifestations that can take place once someone is aligned to compassion in this way. You don't even want to limit yourself to any kind of action. So for example, say you're having an inner conflict in your head with someone who's passed on, you're talking to them and trying to have some kind of resolution to how things should look. We're not even saying you should have to strive to all have harmony and be sitting in the same room together. That's in the lens. All of that happens in the lens. Even those of you who are still with your bodies in the lenses, and you're speaking to someone who doesn't have a body, it's still the lens. And your confinement to the lens, part of the great experiment, is that you get to see what's in the lens, which is a reflection of the whole operating system, but it's still limiting you in order to even have that experience. We're expanding that. We're pushing your adaptation to a new energetic level and this intricate level of decision making. That's where we want you to focus. And if you can hold that compassion as the truth, anything other that isn't compassion is not the truth. That's the illusion of the separation. Now, as we've said, you need to have that illusion in order to have separation. You can still expand yourself further and farther than you think outside of the lens. Our hope is to frame it as adaptation gives you a little bit of inspiration that this is part of why it's so important what you're doing, because you're adapting the entire human species. If it can happen in one body, it can happen in any body. And if you can create within yourself this kind of disarmed, compassionate world, and part of that compassion is how are you going to live with that human part of you, that human part that makes those mistakes. And honestly, you know, the answer is that all of that is just intellectual. That human part of you is a miracle. It's the intellectual arena that defines you any less than being perfect in the moment, whatever, pain or not. And to understand that feeling that pain is part of this answer to your question, Debbie, of the change in the body, the sensory changes. Think of the electromagnetics of your body are completely new. The light body is one of the 4 fundamental forces of the universe. It's always been there. What's making it a light body is that you're now aware of it and you are waking up in that part of your body. Just like a part of you, if you can ride that wave, you can wake up at the top of the North Pole going into the center of the earth. We've expanded your awareness of that. But now this light body is bringing your awareness into that you are, by your awareness now of that electromagnetic transformation that's going on inside you, you've changed the experiment. It's that observer changes, and that's adaptation as well. So you observing yourself, that alone changes it. And this kind of adaptation is actually taking place all over the world right now. You are the ones who get to have this sort of articulation of what it means. Everyone is being forced to adapt. And what you're finding on a personal level, on a more microcosm, is that the adaptation is more about taking care of yourself, honoring your process, articulating that in compassion, and using your imagination to transcend any of that intellectual claptrap, and unifying your entire field with expanding your entire consciousness. And in that way, your bodies are igniting. Actually, DNA is changing, and they are new bodies. Hopefully, humanity realizes how to work with this energy in forms of physical healing, that there would be a time of transcendence where people didn't need to go to the doctor because you understood your innate power of creation. You've purged, not just through many lifetimes, but certainly this one, a lot of that old configuration, which was leading to illnesses and sicknesses and why humans had to suffer. But in the future, a race of people, a species of people who have come through so much to adapt to understanding intrinsically in their I am, just the mathematics, that you have to disarm and create a new awareness of the wholeness. And we've often said, generations and generations ahead, saying, we can't believe you used to do what war. It just won't make sense. And hopefully, on a personal level, for all of you who are listening, the work that you're doing to better your lives is the microcosm of that disarmament that you're doing with yourself, where you're learning to self-love and learning to honor. And ideally, it would be to live in the awareness of the truth. We used to say it would be like walking around with an orgasm. The truth is, it doesn't matter what's going on, just that it's going on is a miracle in and of itself. It certainly matters to the good of all what decisions and free will does, but ultimately it's still a miracle. We want to say that at this point, it's April 30th, 2022, looking at more of a ground level, really take this next 6 months and put those visions in place, whether you want to purge whether you want to create, whether you want to self-heal, working on healing yourself, which means sometimes creating new processes of adaptation so that you don't continually fall in the same hole and hurt yourself again. This is such a strong and inspiring time to do this and to stay close to your inner home. There isn't anywhere else that's home except what's inside you. Accept that love that you flow from you as the I am, surrendering to the ultimate truth of compassion. When you let that be the guiding power, know that just as you do not hold judgment, so others do not judge you. That anyone that you judge, you're judging yourself. Anybody that judges you, they are judging themselves. What arena do you think is yours to play in? It's the one that's your domain. It is a continual process. No one's expecting you to be perfect right now. We're just delighted that you grab on to the process in those moments. You have no idea the kind of scientific observation that's going on. When you're struggling and screaming and quivering, how much we're learning from that electromagnetic area that we intersect at. It's like we're able to live. It helps us to better understand our own guidance, much better like we're experiencing it rather than just sitting off high on a mountain, looking down and theorizing. We are part of this change with all of you. How can we not be? That's the whole point. So as you go forth this week, take this level of compassionate awareness another step higher, another step deeper, another step into a fuller, richer place. And we're going to say, err on the side of selfishness. Trust in your commitment to compassion and that your selfishness is first and foremost, that you are not going to give up your intuition to anyone, not even yourself, not even your own thought processes. That your commitment to intuition, which is where the mystery is the centerpiece of your self-love. Because in that intuition is the voice of compassion, personalized by you and for you, with the wisdom of the ages to guide you to the next most advantageous step for the manifestation of this. And as we've said, we're here to help you build a system of self-support for yourself. We're not the ones to prop you up. We love to sing to you, but that's your work. So as you go forth, know that everything you do is all a part of this grand experiment that we are all a part of. So we would open for questions and conversation.
Thank you so much for that explanation of adaptation and disarmament. I'm just wanting to know further, are there energies that are affecting us, such as coming from the sun or beyond the sun, that is increasing our electromagnetic energies within us, our light fields or whatever, that which we're all adapting to? And do these energies cause anxiousness, or is this just my own adaptation process?
Yes, there are those influences right now, but also remember that without your physical body, that's just mathematics. Everything that's coming from the sun out there is beginning in the source within us. It is an expression and a reflection of that. And absolutely, it creates physical anxiety. I ask you to imagine that the electromagnetics in your body are igniting. It's like sometimes feeling like you need to crawl out of your skin, and it's a kind of a different kind of pain. That's what it is. If you imagine all of those electromagnetic channels going on in your body are suddenly coming to life, and it's processing in a way to help you, as we talked about in the past, the transformer. The source is like the whole power plant, but it transforms downward until it gets to you in your body. Otherwise, it would blow you up. And that's what sometimes spontaneous combustion is. That it translates into a anxiety that you then are triggering intellectual stories about and around. That's the challenge of this change, how to disconnect from those stories and put this new story in. Now you can, when you have that anxiety, there's a new story. It's that there's electromagnetics lighting up inside you. You see you have a different intellectual response to that.
I love that explanation. I love that it begins in source within us. And yes, that will give me a new way to look at it for sure. The igniting of electromagnetics, and not that I'm going insane. I like that much better. So is there a plan within the source that we're all going to be increasing our energies? Is this just the evolutionary process? For example, I've heard that we're going to be light bodies or in 5D on physical. Does this have anything to do with that?
Yes, well, it's the five, even though 5 is the unlimited human potential. It's already happening. You've been the 3 dimension and the 4th dimension and the 5th dimension for quite a while. It's adapting to that new, and as visionaries, you help bring this adaptation forward. How people will deal with it will be very uniquely themselves. As you can imagine, not everyone will entertain the idea that the reason that they have anxiety is because there's electromagnetics igniting inside them. You do what you can for your life. Again, going back to sort of the selfishness of compassion. And we'd like to also address just briefly this idea of the short wall. It's a tool, that's all. You're not supposed to be completely allowing yourself to be exposed. You're learning how to maneuver through environments, protecting yourself from some of the real things that your intuition guides you through. So it's much more about creating that process that you're using than it is about reaching a particular state. That is what's happening. It's happening everywhere.
Hi, Jojo here. That was
Yes.
great. I like the idea of a new skin. Jumping out of the old skin, shedding the old skin idea. And yes, creating a whole new body, or being open to going back to our original DNA quota and so on that I've read about. I've also read during my studies of using a process called cell speak that we will be living on light, if you will. We'll be self-sustaining. We won't even need to eat. That we are, that we will have that loop of source energy while in the physical. That's what's new about all of this, right? That en masse, so many of us are becoming light bodies, ascending, but in the physical all at once.
Yes, it's happening all at once. The idea of being self-sustaining with light makes sense if you think about the part of you that's in the source now. It's separate from your body. It's the eternal part. Waking up there, like we've been trying to get you to do, this is a big stress on that physical body. We've always said it has been that. When you pass, that's the moment where you realize you live on light. We're seeing these light bodies as us here who don't have bodies manifesting here. so that there is a manifestation of physical form here as well. It's hard to explain.
I like the selfish part, being centered within ourselves. That has such a negative connotation for so many, and how we've been programmed. But without it, without being self-centered, we can't do much.
Well, and that is your job,
Mhm.
to take care of self. That is your responsibility that God gave you. When you're centering on our maps, you're centering then on compassion as your source and the fifth fundamental force of the universe. Being selfish just means you're centering on that map. When we say be selfish, we mean, of course, ultimate self-love and listening to that intuition.
I used to like that little visual you gave us some time ago of getting out of the intellect, ego, mind, whatever, by putting it in a little rocking chair way down, in another room or down in the very corner, just shrinking it down. So there it is. It's okay. It's in the rocking chair, but
Yes.
it's not ruling the world.
Yes, yes. And then you can just accept it.
Mhm.
Part of the system.
Right. Thank you.
If there's no more questions, we will close the channel by saying once again, on this beautiful, miraculous day, thank you. Thank you for gathering with us. Thank you for giving us a voice. Thank you for listening to our ideas and suggestions. And thank you for experimenting with those things. We are so grateful and know we feel this extraordinary opportunity to be working for the good of the whole, for the whole of your planet on April 30th, 2022. Working together as we watch and be amazed. Namaste.